Welcome everyone to the Dad Cartel podcast. I'm excited to bring you conversations with great dads from across the country. Please follow the Dad Cartel on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok if you found value in this episode, and please share it with other dads to help create a great dad culture. If you're interested in participating as a guest, please email me at prouddad@dadcartel.com. Today, I'm joined by Jacob Bumgardener. Welcome, Jacob.
Hey, nice to be here.
Yeah, excited to have you. So
Yeah.
So you were one of the people that reached out based on that video I did on, calling where are the badass dads, right? Like where are some of these dads that are passionate about being a dad that have a unique perspective on being a dad? Tell me what made you kind of gravitate towards the content and just even the video itself.
Well, first of all, I like watching the content that you put out there.
Appreciate it.
Second of all, just there's not that there's not that much great content out there for dads. I mean, there's some out there, but there's not really that much out there. And so I just wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah, no, that's some of the feedback I'm getting, right? Like and I've mentioned that before, and it was kind of what took me on this journey of starting this, right? It was trying to find, I was becoming a dad, and I'm trying to see like where are some like dads having real conversations, because there's a lot of, like here's how I do it, and here's a baby product that you should try, and a lot of that stuff. And I think that side's covered pretty well. But
Yeah.
there wasn't like the other side, right? Where like the real part to me of like here's all the shit that you go through. Here's like the struggles. Here's a lot of the things that dads deal with behind the scenes. And that to me wasn't covered enough. So that's why I wanted to start some of these conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. I think my perspective is a little bit different, being a single dad with full custody of my kids. So I kind of had to do the both parts of the parenting on it, and that was a little bit unorthodox. And you don't when you get thrown into that, you don't really know where to start or how to do it. But
Yes. So tell me about that. How was that for you and jumping in, and how is it raising kids on your own and having that full custody, or having full custody? I don't know what the split is exactly.
yeah, it was like I said, just a unique experience. They still have their mom. Their mom is around, but she's not really in their life.
Mhm.
So um I think the biggest part for me and the misconception of being a single dad is because I have a daughter and a son, and what
Mhm.
my main concern was with my daughter of being too
Mhm.
masculine, and
Mhm.
and all that stuff. So you kind of have to find a balance there in the middle of being dad, but showing that softer side.
Mhm.
Um, so we even now, my daughter, she's 12, but we still paint each other's toenails, and we get into
Yeah.
all that stuff. But I mean,
Yeah.
she's out there working on my hot rods with me, doing oil changes, and I mean,
Nice.
it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. It's one of those things that, when my wife got pregnant, I think initially I just felt that I don't know if it's like a biological thing, but I'm like, I want the heir to my name, and like I want a boy, I want a son. And then, as time went on, I really thought about it. I'm like, I honestly don't care. Like as long as the baby's
Yeah.
healthy, and it doesn't matter. And we ended up having a daughter, and like, man, now I just told my wife yesterday, I'm like, you know what, I think I just want girls. Like I don't really, I don't I don't care if I have a son, right? And it's
Yeah.
amazing how that changes.
Yeah, no, it does. And then I mean, just all the aspects of raising a little girl, learning how to do her hair and braids. And
Mhm.
that was one thing when I first was by myself with her. I mean, poor little girl, she went to school looking like George Washington probably for a few months there. But you
Yeah.
you learn. It's a learning process, and
Hmm.
you get through it.
Yeah,
But
you start figuring it out, right? asking
yeah.
asking for help, and taking classes. And
Yeah.
there's so many videos, right? Like YouTube videos. And maybe it won't come as natural to me as it would my wife, or a
Right.
man versus a woman in that case. But it's making that effort and trying to get a little bit better each time.
Mm, yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah,
And
nice.
there's a little bit of content out there to help, but it, you got to figure it out yourself too,
Yeah. So who was a dad role model for you, and who's the best dad that you know?
Um, that would probably be my brother Michael. Um, my I didn't have a bad relationship with my father, but his relationship with my mother, it was real rocky, and so that was that aspect of it. But my brother Michael, he really stepped in and gave me that father figure that I needed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I can relate to that. I have an older brother, and my dad was in and out of my life, and my older brother was really a dad figure to me because he's about 4 years older, 5 years older, and it's just like that. It's a slight difference, but as a kid, it makes the world of difference because you're
yeah,
just like you see like everyone as this like you see someone that's like 18 as like this adult, right? And you learn later as a and when you're older, you're like that's not an adult, that's still a kid,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's so powerful having someone like that. For me, he taught me a lot of things of how to be a man, right? Like how to carry yourself, present yourself,
right,
and things like that. And it's one of those situations where I think most people will have a different story, right? It's like so the ideal scenario is mom and dad are there, and it's a stable structure, and dad's always there, and he throws the ball with you, teaches you about life. But sometimes it's not that straightforward, right? Sometimes it's like you don't have anyone, and then sometimes it's right in between, where it's like you have some family, and they're the ones that step in.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that 100%.
Yeah, and I think it's important to find someone like that, right? I've said it a few times, but like finding like TV dads, right? Like before all the stuff came out about Bill Cosby, but like the Cosby Show was
Yeah,
like I thought that
yeah,
that family structure was like I'm like, man, that's what I want, right? Like I want
yeah,
like a successful wife, or a wife that like is seems like a great partner, and I want like this nice house, and I want to like teach my kids life lessons. And sometimes TV can show like a good scenario. I think it's a little different now, but it doesn't have to be something that you see or engage with every day. It can be like that's a good standard. I want to live by that.
right. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that's all that some people have too. They don't have a sibling or an uncle or somebody to step in and give them that father figure. So a
Hmm.
lot of times that's all they have is what they have on TV or something.
Hmm.
But
Why do you think it's important for men to be great dads?
because we're raising our kids to go out into the world. It's not just that we're raising our kids to be our little kids that are in our own little bubble, but they're gonna grow up, they're gonna start their own life and get out into the world. And I think
Hmm.
it's important that we raise our kids to be great kids, just
Hmm.
great human beings, to go out there and be a good human,
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
far as just living their own life and stuff too. I think us as parents is to prepare our kids for their life. So that's a big thing that I do with my kids is I I just I'm really upfront with my kids, and I talk to my kids about every type of situation that is out there. And I
Yeah.
just I tell them that's my job as your dad is to be your dad first and then your friend second, because you
Hmm.
need to learn about this world and how to be a good person in this world too. So I
Hmm.
mean, we do a lot of things like we make little gift bags for just like when we see a homeless person.
Hmm.
I do a lot of things like that with my kids just to show them both sides of life pretty much.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
I think it's good to show kids and to let them appreciate what they have too.
Yeah. Yeah, you hit on a lot of really interesting points, right? Compassion is a big one, right? Having compassion for people in your community and people that don't have as much as you do, and gratitude, right? That's such a big
Yeah.
thing where it's so easy to get caught up in like the daily life of, I want this, I want a better house, I want a better car, I want, like, nicer things. But it's so powerful too. I've told myself this, and it's something I'm working on, is just taking a second to say, hey, like, be grateful for what you have, right? Like, at some point, everything that I have now is something I dreamed about, right? And I think a lot of people can relate if you're in a better position. And if you're not, then just, I mean, even being alive is such a big thing, right? And being
Yeah.
healthy if you're healthy, right? And teaching that to kids, I think, is so important, because they see all these things online, right? Like with social media, it's so damaging, I think, when you see these things like, you should be a millionaire by the time you're 18, and like
Yeah.
you should look a certain way, and you should be this, be that, and all these like false perceptions of what life is really like. And as dads, I feel like it's our role to say, hey, like, that's all noise, it's all clutter, right? Like, here's what life
Yeah.
is really like.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's an aspect of teaching them the the true perception of what life is and what the media and all that stuff has out there as well. Like you said, becoming a millionaire and all that stuff, I think there's a fine line between that. I own a couple of businesses. I mean, it's kind of like a great story, really. I mean, I um, grew up, I really pretty much uneducated. I made it to the third grade, and my parents pulled me out of school to go work for their business. And then I moved out when I was 14, moved to a different city by myself. And then, yeah, I just started life out that way. And then I, I moved back home, met the kid's mom. We got married and had my kids. I got into truck driving.
Mm,
Um, and then just that whole thing, it didn't work out with the kid's mom, and she
mm,
ended up leaving. So I had to pretty much quit everything that I was doing to figure out how to take care of these two
yeah,
babies all by myself from one day to the next, and
yeah.
but from there, I mean, I never had a victim mentality or never had a poor me mentality. It was, okay,
Mhm,
this is what's going on, this is what I need to do.
mhm,
How do we get there,
yeah, yeah.
so from there, I was in the trucking business for a while, and then I ended up buying a couple of trucks. So now I have that, and then I started a general contractors business on the side with that.
Mm,
And anyways, the point of all that is, I'm trying to show my kids that it doesn't matter what happens in life. Like
mhm,
it, you can say that you were dealt the worst hands in the world, but it matters how you deal with it and you move on.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's like there's always a point where you can pick yourself up, right? And resiliency is so important, right? Like what you mentioned, it's like we're not all dealt the same hand, but that doesn't mean that we all don't have the same opportunities in front of us, right? It's finding them and taking advantage of them, and playing to our strong suits, right? Like, some people are better at talking to people, some people are better at like thinking and planning and strategizing and different things, right? But there's
Yeah,
always a path forward, right? Like, there's always a way to get ahead. And that's what you just mentioned was particularly, I think, important. Like, not having the victim mentality, and not passing that kind of thought process to your kids, because you see it with people that, say the world owes me this, and I can't do this because I'm white, black, Mexican, whatever it is, right? And
yeah,
just saying, like, this is why I can't get ahead. Someone's just stopping me. And I don't believe in that, right? Like, because no one's ever stopped me. I'm Mexican. No one's ever told me you can't have this job because you're Mexican. Like, you can't do
yeah,
this, you can't do that, right? And even if they did, I don't care, I'm gonna figure out a way to do it, right?
mm,
And I think that's the important part, right? Is just saying, telling your kids and showing them, I think, more by example. It seems, like what you're saying now, that your kids see that you don't just say it, you live it, right? You, like, no
yeah,
one's no one's gonna tell me what to do, and no one's gonna tell me that I can't achieve, XYZ, that I can't start a business and this and that in this industry, right? Because you're showing them, hey, I did it and I'm doing it, and so can you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's my daughter's quote whenever we come across something or whatever. That I'll tell her, how are we going to do this? And she just says, "Daddy fixes everything." So
Yeah.
it's just that's our motto, is we figure out a way how to get around it or fix it or whatever we got to do to proceed.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're in a time where it's like you say I can do anything, I'll figure it out, and people look at you like you're crazy, right? Like
Yeah.
I like genuinely believe. I joke around my wife too about it, where I'm like I can do literally anything. Like it would just take me longer to do it, right? Like if I wanted to be an engineer, I could probably it'd take me like maybe like my whole lifetime to do it, but I'd do it. And it's like that's
Yeah,
not the best use of my time, so that's why I'm not going to do it. But you know, I
exactly.
I feel like just having that mindset of just chip away a little bit every day, right? To just be consistent and disciplined. And, those are like values that aren't passed on anymore. It seems like they're being pushed away. What do you think why do you think it feels like the role of dad is being like diminished or being undervalued right now?
I just think the perception that is being put out there for dads, like, I mean, if you look at every sitcom that's out there right now, every dad is a dummy that doesn't know what he's doing. That he's oh darn, I
Hmm.
did it again. I'm just being dad. That, like, I just think that that's out there, and then society is making it okay for you know men, women. For men especially, it's uh not okay to be masculine anymore, and I'm not talking about in a bad way, but just like with my son and even my daughter, she gets into that, is just working on our old little hot rods, and for a dad, I think the reason that that's diminishing is society is painting that picture that it's not okay to be that type of dad anymore. It,
Hmm.
we're Dads are being painted into a picture and pushed into that corner of, we're some dumb bumpkins that we
Hmm.
don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think you're completely right. Or, it's like dad's just this big oaf that just, he always breaks something, or
Yeah.
he's always forgetting the kids at soccer practice and like that kind of crap, right? And it's like, why don't they show the other side, right? Like the real side of like dad staying up late or working, 12 to 18-hour shifts and things like that, like it in the trucking industry,
Yeah.
just working long crazy hours and whatever it is, right, taking care of the household, like fixing things like all hours of the day. The say like the fridge stops working and it's like, all right, we got to figure out what to do because we're not going to let a whole fridge full of food go bad, things like that,
Right.
and troubleshooting that. It's just it's diminished. And they'll make it out to be that you have to be this certain kind of only certain kind of dads will be like respected, right? Like if it's a certain kind of thought or ideology, or it's a certain like you need to be like Harvard educated and whatnot. And
Yeah.
it's like it doesn't matter. The role of dad, you don't need like a Harvard education, you don't need any education. Like it's some of all you need to do is be present and care about your kids and try and
Yeah.
teach them from all the things that you've learned.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we live in a society where money does help, obviously, if you have a great job and all of that stuff. But I mean, that's not necessary to be a dad, to have, money. I've seen a lot of great dads out there that all they have is their time for their kids. But I think,
Mhm.
and at the end of the day, that's what kids want, is your time.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
it's not about the stuff that you can buy them or the fancy games or whatever. It's the quality time that you spend with your kids, and I think that's all they're gonna remember when it's said and done.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what it seems like will benefit them, right? Because you see it with like, I mean, you take it from the other spectrum where it's like the highly successful parents that like never pay attention to their kids, right? Like the ones that are always at work and prioritize work. And you see that with I've met a lot of them where it's just like they're like, yeah, my parents are great and like we had a great house and whatever, like they bought me a car and all this stuff, but they weren't actually asking them, hey, how are you? Like, how's your day? And like, they don't know their best friends' names, and they don't actually take an interest in like, hey, what do you want to like be when you grow up? Like the simple questions like that, right? And
Yeah,
that's that in its own right is like, there it's a huge detriment to kids because now you don't know your kid, right? You're prioritizing, and I get it, we all have to pay bills and we all have careers and things, but like, there has to be something there where I think, I mean, personally, I'm always going to prioritize my daughter and any future kids we have, right? They come first, and
yeah,
work's going to be there, whether we pick it up now or do it later, but it's always going to be there.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And my kids know that too. That I've made that a point for my kids to know that they're my number one priority as far as, if something happens with work or whatever, and they need me, then I'll be there. You know, it that's the way that it's always been. Maybe that comes on the aspect of being a single dad,
Mhm,
and no mom around. I don't know
mhm,
if that's where it came from, but my kids know that, if they call me, if I get a phone call or I'm working and they need something, I mean, I've literally just dropped everything and said, my my kids need me, I'll be back or whatever.
yeah,
That I've always made that a point to make them know that they're a priority in my life.
mhm, yeah, yeah, it
So
seems,
it's worked out.
yeah, yeah, it's important. And it's amazing how like how unimportant some stuff is, right? You start figuring that out too, where it's like, all right, I'll be back. And then you come back to it and you're like, yeah, what I thought was urgent, it could have definitely waited, right? And it
Yeah,
could be a benefit too, because you start seeing things in a different perspective of, am I using my time appropriately? And am I balancing things as I should, right? And there's a lot of things that come with that. And it's not always bad if you have to drop something like that.
yeah. No, definitely, it's a learning experience. Like you said, in our mind we perceive certain things that it's, oh my god, this is, I got to get it, I got to get it done, I got to get it taken care of. And then you get to that point and you're like, exactly what you just said, what, this could have waited. I
Hmm.
didn't need to make this such a big priority. I could have
Hmm.
done something better with my time. So yeah, that's definitely a thing that I've learned and still learning too. I mean, none of us are
Hmm.
perfect either, but
Hmm. Yeah,
but
absolutely. So you're a single dad to two kids. How do you decompress as a dad? Because we both know it can get really stressful, and you're at the stage where your kids are older, and maybe that's a little easier, harder. It might be different, right? But how do I think it's important to take some kind of time for ourselves, right? Like how do you decompress and get rid of that stress?
definitely going and working out. That's a
Mm,
major thing too, because I figured that out too a few years ago, where I was pretty big. I was a pretty big dude, and just my back started hurting, and all that type of stuff. And I said, the same thing with business and raising my kids in life. We have the choice of what we're gonna do and how our life turns out, pretty much. So I just started getting into fitness, and little by little, and now, ever since I started that till now, it's been probably about 2 years, and I think I've lost, I don't know, 130 pounds.
oh
And
man, that's awesome.
yeah, so it that's I think if I could leave anything for anybody, it's all your mindset. Yeah, no, it doesn't matter what you do, business, life, love. You If you tell yourself that you're gonna do it and you're going to succeed, then it's gonna happen. As long as you put in the work. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's what I do. That's what I do for decompressing. That, and like I said, we're in a old cars, so we work on our old hot rods too.
Kind of hot rods do you have?
I got a '69 Chevelle and a '71 Camaro that we have right
Nice.
now. Yeah,
You have to share some pictures. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah,
Very
definitely.
cool. Very cool. Yeah, no, I agree with you, man. The working out piece is really big too. I think it's like just the benefits, right? And you mentioned, it's mental, right? The working out will actually improve your mood, right? So it ties
Yeah,
directly into the mental, right? When I know when we our daughter was born, we were just like, it was like all hands on deck. Like the first 4 weeks I couldn't do anything. I trained jujitsu, and I got to train maybe once or twice that month. And even now I think the next like 4 weeks after that, maybe once or twice a month. And
Yeah.
then same thing, right, moving forward. But man, those like 1 or 2 times, just like it helps, right? Just decompress, and you get to sweat, you get to just like not really worry about anything else, but you just focus on that and just do something that's really hard and difficult physically. And then getting that rush of like endorphins after, and you're just like, man, it feels so good. It's important, right? Like it
Yeah.
decompresses you so much, because I tell, I've learned it's not a sprint. Like, the parenting thing is like this endless marathon. So it's like making sure I'm pacing myself and doing what I need to do, but not trying to like tackle it all at once, because that's like that feels like the quickest way to burn out.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I mean, us as humans too, we're primal animals, you know. I mean, we're used to struggling and fighting, and
Mhm.
so to get in there and get into the gym, I don't know. For me at least, it releases that
Mhm.
primal urge, I guess, to
Mhm.
throw some heavy stuff around
Yes.
and get sweaty, But
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's not talked about enough, right? Like as men, I talk about like with jujitsu, I get like controlled violence, right? I get to be put in these scenarios where it's like I get this aggression out if I have it, and it's not really like doing it like I'm going like 100% like angry and like that type of thing. It's more like we all have this kind of energy that we need to release as men, I think. And
mm,
working out is a great way to do it. Any martial arts a great way to do it. Running, I mean, something that's it's just anything that's like physical and difficult, I think is a great way to do it. And it's necessary, because I know when I don't do it, like I feel weird. I feel like just everything starts aching, and I like not as in a good mood. So I'm like, even if I go to my garage and do like a quick like TRX band workout, I'm like that's
mm.
already something, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. It's so true, because I do the same thing, because sometimes you get caught up in business and work and stuff like that too. So you have to miss that workout or whatever, and literally that's all that I'm thinking about. That
Yeah.
evening or the next day
Mhm,
is like, man, I missed it. Like,
mhm,
but it I think because like you said, it gives you that savage release, and then
mhm.
you get that endorphins hit, and then it makes you feel good, to
Yeah,
get in there.
yeah, absolutely. Yes. So, what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes that a dad can avoid?
Biggest mistake that I wish I avoided was having a preset way that you're going to raise your kids from
Mhm,
when they're born to the way that you're going to raise them when they're teenagers getting ready to leave, because life comes and goes, and it has its ups and downs, and there is no preset way that you're going to deal with everything that
mhm,
comes to you, and like for instance with my daughter, she was about 1.5 when I got full custody of her.
mhm,
So I mean, being the macho man dad and stuff, I was oh man, she's not gonna wear makeup, she's not gonna, all of that type of stuff. And
mhm,
actually one of my friends told me, he goes, it if you push your agenda and your feelings on her, it's just going to make her want to do that even more, and which to a certain extent I agree, because I am very conservative. I'm a conservative dad, but
mhm.
I still give her freedoms and all that
Yeah.
stuff too, just because she needs to see how life really works too, I mean,
Mhm,
obviously I'm there to watch over and protect her now as she's younger, but um just get a little taste of what it's going to be like to be out in the world,
yeah. Because I mean, there's bad people out there, right? And preparing them for people that don't have their best interest in mind, and teaching them, it's not as is always presented, right, in books or whatever it may be. I think is so important. You mentioned something that uh to me, I always talk about, like with my daughter, I always joke around like I don't have to worry about her dating. She's not gonna date till she's like 30. Like
Yeah,
it's just saying. And then I always get the question of like, what are you gonna do when your daughter like starts dating? I'm like, she's not allowed to date unless the guy can like beat my ass. Like it's not gonna
yeah,
happen. Like, and I joke around, but like the lesson is that, or what I'm really trying to say is like, when that time comes, I want her to be with a man who can protect her, right, and has her best interest in mind, and would be there and protect her in the way that I would, right? And you know, I think that's what dads, at least the dads that I talk to that have daughters, that's like the main concern, right? Like they they want to teach them things of how to protect themselves, how to see the world as we see it, right, as men, and give them that perspective, because I think that's something that isn't talked about enough. There's a lot of men out there that and maybe we're all guilty of it when we're younger, right? We're not treating women as seriously as we should, and we're whatever it may be, but passing on those lessons of, hey, like, guys don't probably get their shit together until like their mid-20s, so just be aware of that. And
yeah.
if that, right, sometimes it's later.
No, no, it definitely is, and that's the one thing that I tell her too. Was I tell her, we all have a gut feeling. We all have that feeling that it's there, and it's put there for a reason. But 99% of us decide that we don't want to listen to that or whatever. I told her, always listen to your gut feeling, And I told her, secondly, if you feel uncomfortable with somebody, or there's somebody that's uh, you just get that bad vibe from or whatever, I said, I don't. You'll never get in trouble. I said, I'll always
Mhm,
be there to back you up 100%.
mhm,
I told her, even if it's the principal of your school and you
mhm.
get a bad feeling about it, walk out, go find another adult, call me, and I'll take care of it. You will never get in trouble for trying to protect yourself. And I've impressed that very much on her, was that this is an evil world that we live in, and we got to be
Mhm,
aware of it. I told her
mhm.
the whole world's not evil. I mean, I'm not scaring my
Yeah,
daughter, telling her,
right,
oh,
right,
watch every other corner. But I just told
right.
her that the world that we live in now, there's a lot of bad people out there, and we have to be aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what you said is important, right? Like if you have a bad feeling, just like listen to it, right? Like I'm a big proponent of that too. Like just follow your gut. Like it never steers you wrong, right? And
Yeah,
it's the idea. I think why most people like tend to shy away from it is they think they're gonna look foolish if if you say like you're at a party and you're like, hey, we gotta go, but it's who cares, right? Like
yeah,
the implications of it going a different way, of like that bad feeling, and what that can turn into is a lot more catastrophic than say you leaving a party early and people saying, why'd you leave,
yeah,
that type of thing. So yeah, I mean that's so important, right? Saying like, having the confidence to do things like that too. It sounds like you're teaching her, right? Like, don't worry about what other people think about you, or what whoever may think about you. You have the support system that it won't matter, right? The people
yeah,
that care about you will be there for you.
yeah, definitely, 100%. It, and she knows that too. And that's what I tell her brother too. Her brother's older than her, and I told him, I'm doing a good job on protecting you guys and watching you guys and raising you guys, but when I'm not there, that's where you got to step in. You're the older brother.
Mhm. Yeah.
But so
Yeah,
yeah,
that was the one thing like, from that perspective of having a boy first and having a son first. I always wanted that, because if I did have a daughter, I'm like, okay, my son will protect her. But now I just got to double down on teaching my daughter martial arts, and like making sure she's just a complete savage.
yeah. Now,
Yeah,
and then it is a big way that you raise your kids too, is what's going to determine on the partner that they choose, and
yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I joke around with my daughter, but I tell her, if we ever have like a zombie apocalypse or something, I don't got to worry about you. You're gonna bring home some meat or something to us if we need it. That's
nice.
just the way that I've raised her.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And she's gonna look at like, I think she's gonna look at you as the example, right, for her partner, and that's always a thing, right? Because subconsciously, I think that's what we look for, right? Like when we look for, as men, for partners, we sometimes look at either a mother or someone in a family member as that role model, and in some capacity, right? For me, it was finding a woman who had motherly instincts, because I knew I wasn't like this natural like kid person, right? And I wasn't ready for kids until I found my wife, who was like fantastic with her 6 siblings. And I'm like, well, I think she'd make a great mom. And then all of a sudden I got into the idea of, you know what, I do want kids. And I think for women, it's finding, like they need that protector, right? There's the whole thing, like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and protection and safety is
Yeah.
number one, right? And finding a man who will protect her, provide for her, and in society now, it's so frowned upon that we say that, like if women want to stay home, it's looked at as like a negative, and if they want to take care of their kids and that's what they want to dedicate themselves to, it's seen as like this less than type of thing, and women should be
Right.
like girl bosses and be this and that. And it's not always the path for everyone, right? Like that might not be what your daughter wants. Maybe she wants that, maybe she doesn't, but like the world's open ahead of her, right? And if she wants the option of being with a strong man who will take care of the family and provide, then that should be on the table.
Yeah, that was definitely. And then I've given her a taste of, like I said, the dad masculine side, and then
Mhm.
like the other side of preparing her for whenever she does start dating and stuff. Like I buy my daughter bi-weekly flowers. Every 2 weeks she gets her flowers, and
Yeah.
she knows they're coming. It's like without
Oh,
doubt,
nice.
and then I just on a day-to-day basis, you gotta, I hug her, tell her I love her, and then I tell her, just whenever you do start dating, just make sure that you're with a man that respects you and loves you, so. And then i
Mhm.
i do that with my son too, and then tell him this is how you're supposed to treat uh,
Mhm.
a woman. You have to
Yeah.
respect them, and so it works hand in hand, having the boy and girl. They get both
Yeah.
aspects from it.
Yeah, absolutely. They get to see both perspectives, right? And you get to
Yeah.
teach them both lessons, right? And teaching them, they get to empathize a lot more with one another, right? Because they get to see, like, I think that's the drawback of having like just just a brother, or some people just having multiple brothers or all girls, right? You don't get to see that other perspective closely because growing up as a kid, I was so shy around girls, and it was this thing that I was just not exposed to girls like very often, and it was this thing where for a long time, until maybe I was like in high school, I was so just so shy. And I think that's such a big benefit of having that boy and girl in their own lives, is them being able to see one another and see, this is what a girl goes through, this is what a boy goes through, and then that sets them up a lot quicker, I think, for life.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep,
so
for sure.
tell me what's your number one goal as a dad? If there's only one thing you could teach your kids, like one lesson, what would it be?
My number one lesson would be for them, would we have the ability to dictate how we feel in
Mhm.
life. If somebody is trying to make you mad or trying to make you sad or at the end of the day, we have the ability to let those people not control the way that we're feeling in life. Like
Mhm.
that's been a big proponent of mine, is you just through everything that I've been through and whatnot. It's I'm gonna choose to not have a bad attitude or a victim
Mhm.
mentality on everything that's came through. It's all right, well, that happened, let's move on and get to the next step. I think that
Mhm.
would be the one thing that I would pass on.
Yeah, that's powerful, right? Like you're in charge of your own life, and no one can
Yeah.
tell you anything. I learned that talking to therapists. I like to take therapy when I can, and it's a lot of that of saying no one can make you mad. Only you can make yourself mad, right? They can say
Yeah.
things that you don't find uh you know right, or don't find respectful, or whatever it may be, but they no one can literally flip that switch but you. And it's so powerful when you start thinking about it, and you start taking that in and living it every day, and actually executing on that and saying, you know what, nah, it's not worth it, right? I'm going to use
Yeah.
my energy somewhere else. And we all have a finite amount of energy, and you seem like you're extremely busy. You have 2 kids and multiple businesses, so you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Where I'm not gonna put energy thinking into the guy that cut me off and pissed me off right in the moment. And it's just like, for what, right? It's gonna take more energy for me to be mad all day and to hold it and to potentially like neglect my kids or neglect, my significant other, my wife, whatever, my neighbor that I'm supposed to hang out with, whatever it is, than to just let it go, right? And teaching kids of that lesson is so important.
Well, and then it's kind of like what I tell my kids in our house is bad attitudes are contagious. So once you have a bad attitude, then you pass it on to somebody else, and it's just a never ending. Everybody got a bad attitude now,
Yeah.
So I just say let's stop it. Take your 2 minutes if you want. Go take a walk outside. Go to your room for 2 minutes, but you're the master of your own destiny. If you want to be mad
Yeah.
after those 2 minute break, then you're choosing to be mad.
Mhm.
So that's what we do. And believe it or not, they're as they get older, they it really does kick in where I'll just tell them, hey, you have the choice, and they'll be like, you're right.
Yeah.
Just give me 30 seconds and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. That's
so it
powerful,
really
man.
does work. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And in the same kind of thought process, right? Like a positive attitude, a positive and happy attitude is so infectious too, right? If you come across those people that are just like nothing can mess with them, right? Like nothing can bother them, and someone's rude to them, like, it's fine. Like they must be going through something, right? It's so infectious when you see that, because you're just like, man, like it makes you rethink, how am I reacting to things, and why am I not approaching life like that? Because it's so comforting when you can do that and just say, be that person that people look to of like, oh man, he's never bothered by anything, right? And we all have our moments, and that's what I strive to be. I'm nowhere close to that, but like I try, right? And I think about it daily, and it's like, how can I just like let things go and just be positive, because I know everyone around me is feeling my energy. And big, we talk about energy and just kind of that like gut feeling, and we were talking about earlier, but that positive energy is so powerful, and it can be so powerful.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And then I just think now that my kids are a little bit older, and you don't know how many times they get that compliment from other parents and even their friends, just you have such great kids and they're so respectful. And it's not that I'm sitting there like jamming it down their throat. You better be
Mhm.
when you go over there. No,
Yeah.
it's just from day to day of raising your kids to be a good person.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, my son just turned 17 and my daughter's 12, going to be 13. Numerous amounts of people that everybody that they meet, that's what I get from them. Your kids are so great, and they're so respectful, and the way that they
Uh,
talk to us, and that makes, and then in return, that makes me happy.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
people are noticing.
That must be like the ultimate compliment, right? Like people telling you like your kids are awesome, like your kids are great, like they're so nice, and your kids say thank you and they're so respectful. I would imagine that's so fulfilling.
Yeah, no, it is. It's one of the best feelings in the world, to be honest. It's great.
It's beautiful, man. So what are some life lessons or anything that you'd share with dads, new dads, any dad, right? Like what's something you'd like to pass on?
Um, I think just figure it out. Like it's not going to be perfect.
Mm.
There's no perfect way to do anything. But as long as you're giving your love to those kids and you're trying to do the best for those kids, it'll work itself out.
Mhm.
Like, I think, or at least for me, when I first started, I was trying to find a guidebook on what I needed to do to become a dad, like a full
Mm.
time dad and whatnot. And there's nothing out there that's going to tell you, oh well, when they're 2.5, they're going to be like this, so you need to do that. It's not there. You got to figure it out. And it comes to you so natural, believe it or not. As a
Mhm.
dad, and you love your kids, you figure it out, and it works out at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, thank you, Jacob. It's been a pleasure, man. I think we covered some really powerful points, and just want to say thanks again for jumping on and for talking to other dads out there. I think it's important, and trying to create more and more of these conversations. So, if you want to carry the conversation on, anyone on here as well that's listening, I created a community that you could sign up for. It's free. We can post on there any kind of thing that you're going through, any advice that you'd like to give, or request or anything like that. Feel free to join, because I think these conversations are powerful, right? And I'm trying to keep them moving, right? I'm trying to keep them going, because I don't want to just do this once, right? I want to just keep this going and make sure there's constant communication, because I think that's how we get over this, and that's how we change things, and that's how we get society to value dads again.
Yeah, definitely that goes hand in hand with what I guess we were just talking about, was like there wasn't this type of podcast when I was dealing with being
Mhm,
a single dad. This would have been
mhm,
so much help back in the day.
mhm,
So yeah,
mhm,
definitely I think everybody should get involved in this and have your conversations. Hey, my baby's crying, what do I do? Or
mhm,
hey, what's the best way to do a French braid? I mean, just
mhm.
there's from A to Z, there's so many things that people could learn from this, and that's why I'm really excited about it.
Appreciate it, man. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and look forward to having you on again.
Yes, sir, no problem. Sounds great.
All right, thank you, man.
All right, you have a good one.